Hello everyone, my name is Akshay Palande and I am teaching you economics. In this session of economics, I will be teaching you about WTO and GATT. WTO is World Trade Organization and GATT is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. Okay. Before I come to what they are, I would like to start off how they were formed. Okay. So basically, there is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, and from this WTO was formed. Okay. Now General Agreement on Tariff and Trade was formed in 1947. 1947. There were 23 countries that formed this organization. Not an organization, this was a treaty, General Agreement. It was an agreement on tariff and trade. 23 countries signed this agreement. India was one of them. Okay. And going on, in 1995, this General Agreement on Tariff and Trade was converted to WTO, that is World Trade Organization, at the Marrakesh Treaty. Okay. The Secretary of the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade was told to draft a constitution for the organization. That draft is called as the Dunkel draft, and this Dunkel draft was adopted at the Marrakesh Agreement at Marrakesh, that is in Morocco, and this is called as the Marrakesh Treaty. And at that time WTO came to be formed, that is World Trade Organization. Okay, the GATT round, that is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, was going through a round of negotiation. This round, when it formed the WTO, this round is called as the Uruguay round. Okay, so what is a round? I'll first tell you. I'll just go through what are these things. Okay, so basically there is something called as a round of negotiations. What happens during these rounds of negotiation is there is a specific agenda that is taken up, and that agenda is discussed and consensus are brought upon. Okay, so when WTO was formed, the round that was going on was called as the Uruguay round. Okay, and now currently in the WTO, the round that is going on is called as the Doha round. Doha is the capital of Qatar. This round had initiated at Doha, so it is called as Doha round. That round had initiated at Uruguay, so it is called as the Uruguay round. Okay, so this is the beginning of WTO. Now, see, what is the difference between WTO and GATT? The main difference between WTO and GATT is WTO has a dispute settlement body, whereas GATT does not have a dispute settlement body. Okay. Basically, if there are any disputes between two countries or two parties, WTO can settle those disputes, but GATT could not. WTO is an organization, whereas GATT is an agreement. Okay. WTO has a proper secretariat in Geneva, Switzerland, whereas GATT does not have a secretariat. It was just an agreement between 23 countries. Okay. So that is the basic difference between WTO and GATT. Okay. Now, who all are the members of WTO? Okay. This is very important to know. The members of WTO can be any, not just a country, it can be any region that has a specific customs territory. Okay. As in, I'll give you an example of this. Now, China, this is China and this is Taiwan. Okay. So China and this is Hong Kong. Okay. So China is a part of WTO. Along with that, Hong Kong has its own customs territory. It is also a part of WTO, and Taiwan, which has disputes with China. China claims that Taiwan is its part. So even Taiwan has its own WTO status and it is a member of WTO. So any area, any given area that has its own customs territory, that governs its own customs laws, has the right to be a member of WTO. Okay, so this is very important to know, because you don't have to be a physical, a different entity. Like Hong Kong is also part of WTO and China is also part of WTO. Okay. Now WTO is not an organization that is part of United Nations. It is an autonomous body. This is very important. Remember this, that WTO is an autonomous body, and here, like the United Nations or the World Banks, in United Nations there is the United Nations Security Council which has a veto power, whereas in the World Bank, the larger the number of contribution, the greater is your voting powers. But in WTO, one nation or one territory has one vote. This is the biggest advantage of WTO. It does not believe in how much money, how much big an economy is, or how much contribution that economy has made towards the organization, but the fact that one nation has one vote, or one customs territory has one vote. So China will have one vote, India will have one vote, Hong Kong will as well have one vote. Okay, that is the basic difference between them. Now WTO, basically the structure of WTO is this way. At WTO there is something called as a general conference that happens yearly. It's based in Switzerland, Geneva. Okay, and there is the dispute settlement body, and there is the Trade Policy Review Board. Okay. Now what are these two? Okay, dispute settlement body, I am sure you can understand from the word itself. If there are disputes between two countries, okay, like the current dispute that is going on between India and other countries. India has imposed large import duties on solar panels. So now the other countries have a right to drag India to the WTO court and settle this dispute out there. Okay, or the dispute you can take of Indian, yeah, exactly, that is the dispute. So if some country is dumping more goods in another country, that other country, if it imposes import duties, higher import duties on the goods, then the two countries can go to dispute settlement body to fight it out. Okay. Now what is Trade Policy Review Body? Trade Policy Review Body is basically, it reviews the trade policies of the nations. It goes through the trade policies of the nations and suggests better, ways or innovative ways to make it more transparent, to make it more government friendly, to integrate the more economies in a better way, etc., etc. Okay, so these are the things. Okay, now see the biggest country that is, I forgot to tell you this when I was telling the membership of WTO, the biggest country that is outside the ambit of WTO is Iran. Other than that, Russia is now part of WTO, China is also part of WTO, and a lot of other countries. Okay, but the biggest country outside WTO is Iran. Okay. Now WTO basically is divided into a few aspects. Okay, there is agreement on agriculture. Then there is TRIPS, that is trade related intellectual property rights. Then there is NAMA, that is non-agricultural manufactured market access. Okay, these are the few things that are going on in WTO at this moment. Okay, so everything I will try to relate it to these things. Okay, so going on with agreement on agriculture. Okay, so agreement on agriculture basically has three aspects to it. Okay, first is subsidies, that is domestic. Okay, then there is export subsidies, and then there is market access. See, the entire argument that is going on in the WTO regarding the agreement on agriculture is based on all these 3 points. That is subsidies, domestic subsidies, export subsidies and market access. Okay. Now what are these domestic subsidies? I will further explain to you. Okay. Domestic subsidies are basically divided into 3 parts. Domestic subsidies are basically divided into 3 parts. First is blue box subsidies. Second is amber box. Sorry, first is green box. And last is blue box. Now what are these subsidies? Okay. The first is green box subsidies. These are the subsidies given for the research and development in agriculture. A country, imagine India, is funding large amount of research through ICAR or other institutes. Okay. So these subsidies on R&D, research and development, education of people in agriculture are all part of green box subsidies. But they basically do not distort the market. What it does is it develops new technologies, new scientific hybrid seeds, better fertilizers, better pesticides, okay, and this they basically will increase the production, but it will not directly cause any kind of distortion in food prices. Okay. Now moving on to amber box. Amber box are these subsidies that are given on a large scale by a lot of countries, even India gives them. These are the subsidies that are given on fertilizers. These are the subsidies that are given on pesticides. These are the subsidies that are given on hybrid seeds. These subsidies make the fertilizers or pesticides or seeds cheaper for the farmer. Because of that, the production cost of the farmer goes down, and because of that, the eventual selling cost also goes down. So how do these amber box subsidies affect the world? India does not give a lot of subsidies because India cannot afford to, but countries like USA or Western countries, they tend to give around 90% of subsidies. So the original cost of production for a farmer is only 10%. So he can sell the grains or sell the food at a really cheap cost. Okay. So what happens because of that is the Indian wheat. Imagine United States of America growing large amount of wheat, okay, in its central plains. That wheat is cheaper than Indian wheat because it is highly subsidized. It is 90% subsidized. So Indian wheat cannot compete with that wheat. The prices of Indian wheat cannot compete with that wheat. So as a result, there is a higher possibility of United States flooding our market with their wheat production. Okay, and our wheat production not being used at all. So these subsidies actually distort the market in a way. These subsidies actually try to destroy the competition in a way. And that is why the developing countries are after the developed countries to reduce the amber box subsidies and not the green box or the blue box. I'll come to what the blue box are. So because they directly affect the price of the food products, and they directly make the food products of developed nations much more, competition wise cheaper to our food products or developing nations food products. Okay. Now moving on to blue box subsidies. What are blue box subsidies? Blue box subsidies are the subsidies given by the government directly to the farmer to keep the land fallow. Okay. What happens is when the land is kept fallow, the fertility of that land increases, or the fertility of that land increases and it gets a resting time. So it is a sustainable way of maintaining the environment and ecology. Okay. So even this subsidy does not distort the market in any way because there is no production. It's just the cost that is given, the cost of production is given or the profit is given. As in, if I had 1 acre of land, okay, and I could earn around 100 rupees from that. Okay. I'm giving it in Indian example. Okay. So the government, if I could earn 100 rupees from that in a year, the government will directly give me 100 rupees and tell me do not grow anything on this land. Okay. So what happens in that is, there is no actual production, it is just that I as a farmer has got money. So what happens is, that actual production that is not there will not distort the market in any way. So it's not a problem actually. Okay. So blue box subsidies are also okay. So always remember, when talking about WTO and General Agreement on Agriculture, the biggest point that the developing nations have is to reduce the amber box subsidies, that is direct subsidies to the farmers. Okay. Now what are export subsidies? Okay. These are the domestic subsidies that are given. So moving on to export subsidies. Okay. Export subsidies are basically those subsidies that are given to make exports cheaper. I'll give you an example of it. There was 1 kilo of rice in India that cost around 100 rupees. Okay. Wow. And there was 1 kilo of rice in in China that cost around 10 rupees. So while exporting, what will happen is the Chinese rice will be much more cheaper than the Indian rice. Okay. So, no, actually, see, both of them cost 10 rupees of production. Production is the cost is the same. But while exporting, what India will do is it will compensate this 10 rupees to make it 8 rupees. So that it can compete with the Chinese rice. How will it make it 8 rupees is, while you are exporting, there are certain schemes that are there. Schemes like, exporters are given subsidies, as in after every, maybe 1 kilo of rice will be given 2 rupees subsidy. Okay. As in, if you export 1 kilo of rice, you will be given 2 rupees with that. Okay, for that. So, what will your original cost come to? 8 rupees. Because you earned 2 rupees already and 10 rupees was the cost. So, 8 rupees. So, now your 8 rupees ka rice can compete in a better way with the 10 rupees rice of China. But this is just an ideal example. Even China gives this subsidy. Okay. So now entire issue. Okay, there are two sides to this entire thing. Okay. The first side being, it helps India gather foreign exchange. Okay, that is the biggest thing that it does. Okay, India can, through increasing its exports by making them cheaper, India can accumulate a lot of foreign exchange. But there is another side to this argument as well. Many economists believe that when you give subsidies, these subsidies are actually being used by the consumer abroad. That is a non-national. So your taxpayers' money is being used to feed someone else. I'll give you, I'll show you in that example only. If the rice was costing 10 rupees and we were giving 2 rupees subsidies, so it is costing 8 rupees. But this rice is not eaten by Indians. This rice will be exported to some other country, probably some African country. Okay. So this rice will be exported to some African country. Now this African country, people will eat this rice, not an Indian will eat this rice. So this 2 rupees that we are spending, 2 rupees as subsidies that we are spending, is being used by an African country. Okay. So that is export subsidies. And there is the last thing, that is our market access. Okay. Since most of the developing nations are dependent on agriculture production for their exports, what these developed nations have done is they basically restrict the market access through a lot of factors. One, by increasing the customs duty. Two, by making standards and quality norms. Recently in 2014, Indian mangoes, they are banned from being exported to Europe because they have certain pests in them, and because of health standards and all, health quality standards and all. Because of that, Indian exporters or Indian even mango growers have faced huge amount of losses. Okay. So this is the basic point behind that. It's market access. I'll come to market access better. Actually, market access, there are tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. Tariff barriers will have customs duties and all. Non-tariff barriers will have standards to be maintained, quantitative restrictions. Then there are qualitative restrictions, non-tariff barriers, etc., etc. Okay. This I have explained better in Foreign Trade of India. Okay. So please refer to that session. Now coming on to TRIPS. What are TRIPS? Trade-related intellectual property rights. This is one of the biggest aspects of WTO. Now, what are intellectual property rights? I would like to first, elaborate on that. Intellectual property is a work of intellect or mind to create products that have commercial usage. Products like drugs, literature, paintings, etc. It is protected like a physical property with trademarks, patents, etc. Holders of the patent, etc. are entitled to commercial proceeds from the specified time period exclusively. Okay. What the Westerners or what people started believing is, you should have a value of what you invent. You should have a value of your intelligence. Okay. So how did they do that? If I today invent something new in this world, then I patent that thing. Okay. Now imagine I have invented this pen. Okay. I patent this pen. Okay. This pen has been invented by me. Such a pen has only been invented by Akshay Palande. Now this pen, when I sell it to people, I will get the royalty behind that. When I sell the technology behind this pen, how it works or how it should be made to other people, I will get the royalty behind that for a stipulated time. That stipulated time is 20 years. Okay. So I'll give you an example of Google for that matter. The doodles that the Google has, that is the Google name that is written there. Here there is the search bar and here Google is written. Okay. So they have different designs and all over here. This has been patented by Google. So no other website can actually have such designs out here related to the current affairs or whatever they have, these things related to. So like that, a lot of inventions have been patented. Okay. Now you take the example of IBM. Okay. IBM is this computer giant. You will not hear a lot about it because they are not more into marketing. They were the ones who developed the technology of integrated circuit. Okay. They were the ones who brought out this technology of integrated circuit. They have patented this technology. And now every computer, you can say maybe Dell or maybe Acer or maybe whatever names you can come up with. Okay. HCL. Okay. Whatever companies that are into making computers, whenever they use these technologies, okay, or even desktops, whatever companies that are there in making desktops, whenever they use the integrated circuit technology, they have to give their royalty to IBM. Why is that? Because IBM had the brains or the intellect to develop something, and it has to get the rewards for whatever it has done. This is the philosophy behind intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights are of different types. I'll go through them in an elaborate manner. Okay. So intellectual property rights are for a lot of things. Okay. And they are called a lot of different things for different fields. Okay. Firstly, there are patents. Okay. Patents are for inventions. Okay. Inventions like the IC circuit, or inventions like maybe the light bulb, or maybe some drug that has been invented. These are basic, these are basic inventions. Something new that is invented in any field can be patented for 20 years, and wherever it is used all over the world, royalty has to be paid. Okay. Then there is copyright. Copyright is basically for literary works or creative works. Creative works, when I talk about creative works, there is maybe art, there is literature, maybe there is music. It can be copyrighted. Okay. Then there is trademark. Okay, trademark is basically for, you know, signs, distinctive signs. Now, Coca-Cola has trademarked its sign. Pepsi has trademarked its sign. No one else can use those signs, you know, after that. So if I am making some cold drink or whatever, anything I am making, if I use the sign of Coca-Cola, I can be, you know, penalized for that. Then there is something called as industrial designs. Okay, like currently the trend is on the mobile phones, the smartphones that you have. They have patented the length of this border, or they have patented how the button is. They have patented the curves. There is a huge patent war that is going on. Industrial design war that is going on between Samsung and Apple. Okay. So every product that is made, you can patent it, even if that product is something that is already there, like a phone. But the design has been patented. No one else can use that design anymore. Okay. So these are the trade related intellectual property rights. Okay. Now patents are offered on two things. One is product, and two is process. Now imagine I am making this pen. Okay. If I patent this pen as a product, no one else can make it. So it is called a product patent. So no one else can make a pen like this. Okay. No one else. Anyone who makes it has to give me royalty, or take permission from me first and then give me royalty. What is process patent? I made this pen, but the process of making this pen has been patented. Okay. So if someone else makes the same pen out of a different process, then it is, okay. Okay. So this is the difference between product patent and process patent.